ISO 14001 2015 and ISO 14004 2017. Operation. The content overview. This video will consists of two parts, which are operational planning and control, emergency preparedness and response. Enjoy the video.
Operational planning and control. The organization shall establish, implement, control and maintain the processes needed to meet the EMS requirements. It is also important to control plan changes and review the consequences of unintended change. The organization shall have consistency with a life cycle perspective by establish controls, as appropriate, to ensure that its environmental requirement is addressed in the design and development process for the product or services, considering each life cycle stage. Determine its environment requirement for the procurement of products or services, as appropriate. Communicate its relevant environmental requirement to external providers, including contractors, and consider the need to provide information about potential significant environmental impacts associated with the logistics, use, end-to-life treatment and final disposal of its products and services. On top of everything, the organization shall maintain documented information in order to have confidence that the processes have been carried out as planned. The hierarchy of control is introduced in ISO 14004 as a guideline in establishing control of the organization's operations and associated processes. This system is essential in mitigating the adverse environmental impact. It is a step-by-step approach in eliminating or reducing risks, and it ranks risk controls from the highest level of protection and reliability through to the lowest and least reliable protection. The highest level in this hierarchy system is eliminating hazard and risk. This method has the highest level of protection and provides the most effective control. Then, followed by substitution, engineering control and administrative control alternative. PPE is not included here, however it is also regarded as one of the control structure, though it is the least reliable control method. Documented information is developed in order to avoid aberrations of environmental policy, environmental objectives and compliance obligations. It consists of qualification of personnel involved, key variables such as time, characteristics of the materials and infrastructure to be used, and the characteristic of the product. An organization can use operational controls to manage identified significant environmental aspects, ensure fulfillment of compliance obligations, achieve environmental objectives and ensure consistency with its environmental policy, avoid and minimize adverse impacts to the environment and organization, maximize opportunities. Methods to influence significant environmental aspects include providing education on how to manage relevant environmental impacts, providing easy access to information, establishing user groups for sharing information, and keeping users updated. An outsourced process can be subject to control or influence and fulfills all the criteria. The function or process is integral to the organization's functioning. The function or process is needed for the environmental management system to achieve its intended outcome. The liability for the function or process conforming to requirements is retained by the organization. The organization and the external provider have a relationship. A common approach to establishing operational controls can include choosing a method of control, selecting acceptable operating criteria, for example operating features of machines and measurements or weight or temperature. Establishing processes as needed that define how identified operations are to be planned, carried out and controlled. Documenting these processes as needed in the form of instructions, signs, forms, videos, photos. Applying technological options, such as automated systems, materials, equipment and software. Once operational controls have been established, the organization should monitor the continuing application and effectiveness of these controls, as well as plan and take any action needed. Emergency preparedness and response. ISO 14001 in Clause 4.4.7 mentioned that the organization shall establish, implement and maintain procedures to identify the potential emergency situations and potential accidents. The organization should respond to actual emergency situations and accidents that happen in their workplace. All the information and prevention methods should be written and structured so that can be read quickly and easily. How to set up your emergency plan. Based on ISO 14001, there are 5 main steps can be used to set up the emergency plan. For the step 1, the organization have to identify the specific potential accident related to your circumstances and type of activity. Second step, you have to discuss with your personnel for preventive measures related to every type of accident. Based on ISO 14001, the emergency plans shall include actions to prevent and mitigate associated environmental impacts. Third step, which is emergency plan, is depending on complexity and needs, the organization should establish 1 or more emergency plans. The employer should make sure all employees know this emergency plan. Training and drills is the 4th step we should consider on emergency plan, and employees need to be exposed with the preventive measures and the emergency plan. Next, the 5th step we should consider in order to set up the emergency plan is evaluation and improvement. Drill reports have to take into consideration gaps between the emergency plan and the drill result. The output of the drill report should focus on closing gaps and any other recommendations related to improvement of the emergency plan. One of the case study is Fujitsu Malaysia. The Fujitsu actively utilizes its own environmental management tool. For example, they use ISO 14001 Green Management System, GMS, which to exercise unified control over the operational status of the EMS with regard to improvements in and conformance issues relating to findings from internal audits, communications activities, direct and indirect effects identified in environmental impact assessments, and the setting of environmental management objectives and targets. GMS enables corrective measures and objectives to be soundly managed, and effectively ensures continual improvement of the activities with reduced risks.